Welcome back to the deep dive. It is so good to have you here with us.
It's great to be back.
You know, usually when we start these dives, we have this stack of sources that are, well, they're pretty academic. We're looking at research papers, historical records, that kind of thing.
Right. Standard stuff.
But today, the stack on the desk in front of me is a little different. It feels heavier, and I mean that both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It's police affidavits, discovery documents from the DA's office, text message logs that are hundreds of pages long, bankruptcy filings, psychological profiles.
It's a massive amount of raw data. And I think that's what really distinguishes the case we're covering today. It's a story that everyone thinks they know. I mean, it played out in real time on our Facebook feeds, on the nightly news. But when you actually open these files, when you look at the raw data, the narrative is, it's just so much more complex and frankly disturbing than the headlines ever captured.
It is. We're talking, of course, about the Watts family murders.
Frederick, Colorado, August of 2018. Christopher Watts, his pregnant wife Shanann, and their two little girls, Bella and Celeste.
This case is, I think, often cited as the death of the perfect family myth. I mean, you had everything. The subdivision, the big new build house, the attractive couple, the social media saturation.
His social media was constant.
Constant. And then, almost overnight, it turns into something completely unrecognizable.
Exactly. And that is our mission for this deep dive. We aren't here to just, rehash a true crime timeline for the sake of drama.
Yeah.
We want to act as almost like forensic auditors of a life that completely fell apart. We want to understand the mechanics of the collapse.
That's a good way to put it.
We're going to look at the financial rot that was hiding behind all those social media filters, the specific digital footprints that completely destroyed the lies he told, and the psychology of what experts call a family annihilator.
And that term is absolutely crucial. Family annihilator. It's a very specific criminological profile that we're going to unpack later. But to get there, I mean, you really have to understand the pressure cooker that created it.
So let's structure this for you. We're going to go through it in 4 parts. First, the facade, the background, the money. Then we'll move to the disappearance, that critical window of time on August 13th.
After that, we'll get into the investigation, which is really where the tech comes in and unravels everything.
And then the confessions, and I say confessions, plural, because there are a few very different versions of the story. And finally, we'll look at the aftermath and the psychology.
It's really the only way to process a case this heavy. You have to strip away the emotion at first and just look at the cold, hard facts, because the facts are what caught him.
Okay. Let's jump right in then. Segment 1, the facade. If you were scrolling through Facebook in, say, 2017 or early 2018, and you stumbled across Shanann Watts' profile, what did you see?
You saw the American dream packaged for social media.
Yeah.
You saw Christopher Lee Watts, this quiet, very fit guy. He worked for Anadarko Petroleum in the oil fields.
The strong, silent type.
Totally. And then you saw Shanann Catherine Ruchek, who was just the opposite. Vibrant, very successful in her field, always on camera, always live streaming.
They met in North Carolina back in 2010, got married in 2012, and then pretty much immediately moved out west to Colorado to build this new life.
And they bought a house that just screamed, "We've made it."
Yeah.
2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick. It was a 5-bedroom home.
5 bedrooms for 2 people.
Over 4,000 square feet. Purchased in 2013, right after they moved. I mean, this was the dream house.
And they filled it fast. Their first daughter, Bella, was born in 2013, and then Celeste, who they all called Cece, came along in 2015.
And at the time of the murders, Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with a little boy. They were going to name him Nico.
And can we just pause on that for a second? Nico. They had a name, they had ultrasound pictures. That implies a future. It implies hope. It implies that conversations were happening about nursery colors and due dates and what life was going to be like with 3 kids. And yet, as we're going to see in the text logs later, Chris is living in a completely different mental reality at this point.
That is the core dissonance of this whole case. Outwardly, the family is expanding, they're growing. But inwardly, Chris is just detaching.
And the biggest crack in that foundation, and this is something the headlines often just glossed over, was the money.
Oh, the money.
I'm looking at the financial documents here, and crack is a huge understatement. It was a sinkhole.
It really was. You see the big house, you see the nice clothes, the vacations, the Lexus in the driveway. But if you pull the court records, the Watts family filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in June of 2015.
2015. That's a full 3 years before the murders. I'm looking at the filing summary right here. They listed their liabilities at roughly $448,000.
Wow.
And their assets, mostly illiquid, almost all of it tied up in that house they couldn't really afford.
$448,000 is a staggering number for a young couple. And look at what constitutes that debt. I mean, you can see it in the filings. It's not one big thing. It's everything. It's credit cards, student loans, medical bills from having the kids. They were completely drowning.
But here's the kicker. Despite filing for bankruptcy, the lifestyle didn't really scale down.
No, it actually ramped up.
It did. And that brings us to Shanann's job. This is crucial to understanding the pressure in that house. She worked for a company called Lavelle, selling a product called Thrive.
Right, a multi-level marketing company. An MLM.
Now, we're not here to, bash the entire industry, but we have to look at the specific mechanics of this company because it put immense, almost unimaginable pressure on their daily life.
Lavelle is a lifestyle brand. They sell these Thrive patches, which are basically vitamin patches and protein shakes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the business model isn't just about selling a product. It's built on what's called attraction marketing, meaning to sell the product, you have to sell the life. You have to convince people that using these patches is what makes you successful and energetic and wealthy and happy. Your life becomes the advertisement.
So Shanann's job wasn't just sales. Her job was performance.
Exactly. Every single post, every Facebook Live, every photo had to project this image of incredible success. You can't really sell the dream if you admit you're broke.
So while they're privately dealing with bankruptcy collectors, she is publicly broadcasting this perfect, thriving life.
And let's talk about the car, the Lexus, because that's a perfect example of this pressure.
Oh, this is such a huge detail. I was reading about their auto bonus program.
Right. So Lavelle, like a lot of MLMs, has a car program. If you hit a certain sales tier, a very high sales tier, they give you a monthly stipend. I think it was around $800 to lease a luxury car.
A Lexus, a BMW, a Mercedes. Shanann was driving a brand new Lexus as part of this program.
And it sounds great, right? On her Facebook, she's saying, the company pays for my car.
But you have to read the fine print.
You always have to read the fine print. That stipend is entirely conditional on you maintaining that high sales volume every single month.
So if you have a bad month, if some of your downline quits,
the company doesn't pay.
Yeah.
You do. The lease is in your name, not the company's.
So you have a family fresh out of bankruptcy with a mortgage they can barely afford, and now they're on the hook for a luxury car payment that is basically a ticking financial time bomb.
It's a treadmill you just can't get off of.
Yeah.
If she stops posting, if she stops selling, that car payment hits their personal bank account, which we know is already empty.
And Chris, what's his role in all this?
He's the prop. He's the Thrive husband. He's in the background of her videos. He's wearing the patches in the photos. He's doing the workout videos with her.
He's part of the performance.
He is. But the text messages we have show he was growing increasingly resentful of being part of the show. He hated it.
So it's a performance of happiness that's being funded by a mountain of debt. And that brings us to the summer of 2018. The tension is just, you can feel it in the text messages.
Palpable.
And Shanann goes away to North Carolina to visit family for a few weeks, leaving Chris and the girls alone in Colorado.
That separation is critical. That's when Chris gets a taste of life without the performance. That's when the affair with his coworker, Nicole Kessinger, really intensifies. He's not being a dad. He's not being a husband. He's going to the gym. He's going on dates. He's feeling free.
And then reality comes crashing back. Shanann and the girls come home, and we move right into segment 2, the disappearance.
This is August 13, 2018, a Monday.
Let's walk through this timeline really slowly because the discrepancy between what actually happened and what Chris said happened is precisely where he got caught.
It all starts in the very early morning hours. Shanann had been away again, this time on a short business trip to Arizona for Lavelle.
Right. She flies back late Sunday night into early Monday morning. Her friend and colleague, Nicole Utoft Atkinson, picks her up from the airport and drives her home.
And can we just take a moment to appreciate Nicole Atkinson?
Absolutely. In the annals of true crime, she is an absolute MVP, a hero.
She really is. Without her, Chris might have had another 24, maybe 48 hours to clean up, to dispose of evidence, to construct a better, more believable lie.
So Nicole drops Shanann off at the house at 1:48 a.m. She watches her walk up to the door.
1:48 a.m. And we know from the records on the digital lock on their front door that she entered right at that time. That is a hard, indisputable data point.
And that is the last time anyone other than Chris saw Shanann alive.
Right. Now, Chris's initial story, the one he eventually tells police before the truth comes out, is that the alarm went off around 5 a.m., they had an emotional conversation about separating, and then he left for work around 5:15 a.m.
So we have this black box of time, roughly 3.5 hours, between 1:48 a.m. and 5:15 a.m. Whatever happened, happened then.
Okay.
Chris leaves for work. He drives his work truck out to a remote oil site. Now, usually in cases like this, the alarm isn't raised until that evening, right? The husband comes home from work, oh my gosh, where's my wife? But that is not what happened here.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Nicole Atkinson starts worrying almost immediately. Shanann was pregnant, she wasn't feeling well from the trip, and she had a very important OB/GYN appointment scheduled for that morning.
And she missed it.
She missed it. And even more importantly, for someone in her line of work, she wasn't texting.
That's the digital silence we talked about. For a woman who runs her entire business from her phone, who posts a dozen times a day, going silent is the equivalent of screaming for help.
And Nicole knows this. It's completely out of character. So she texts Shanann, no reply. She calls, goes straight to voicemail. She even calls the doctor's office. Did Shanann show up? No, she missed her appointment.
So by 12:10 p.m., I mean, that is barely 10 hours after she dropped her off. Nicole is standing on the Watts' front porch, ringing the doorbell.
Incredible. She knocks, no answer. She knows the code to the house, so she tries to put it in.
But she can't get in.
No, because the security latch on the inside of the door is engaged. That's a huge red flag. So she calls Chris. He gives her the runaround, says, oh, they're probably on a play date. Don't call the cops. I'm on my way home. But she doesn't listen to him.
Thank God.
She hangs up and calls the Frederick Police Department.
This proactive behavior completely saves the investigation. It just puts everything on a fast track. So the police arrive for a welfare check at about 1:40 p.m. Officer Coonrod is the first one on the scene.
And Chris pulls up in his Anadarko work truck shortly after, and we have the body cam footage of this entire interaction. You can go online and watch Chris trying to play it cool and failing miserably.
He lets the officer in. They start to search the house, and this is where that facade we talked about earlier physically crumbles right in front of the camera.
The house is, it's too normal.
Right. It's pristine. It's undisturbed. There's no sign of a struggle. But the little details, they don't scream she left him. They scream abduction or foul play.
Let's list the items found, because this inventory is absolutely damning from the very first minute.
Okay, first, her purse. It's in the office, sitting on the counter.
And inside, her wallet, her keys, and her medication for lupus.
A pregnant woman with a serious medical condition is not leaving the house without her keys, her wallet, or her life-sustaining meds. It's impossible.
Okay, second key item. The phone. They find Shanann's cell phone stuffed between the cushions of the couch in the upstairs loft.
I mean, come on. That is her lifeline. That phone was practically attached to her hand. She doesn't go to the bathroom without that phone, let alone run away to start a new life.
Finding the phone there, you can actually hear the officer's tone change in the body cam video. He knows something is very, very wrong.
And the third thing, the car seats.
Shanann's Lexus is in the garage. And looking through the window, the officer sees that both of the children's car seats are still strapped into the back seat.
You cannot take a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old anywhere without car seats. Not legally, not safely, and certainly not if you're planning on running away.
And then there's the final item. On the nightstand, in the master bedroom, they find her wedding ring.
Wow. So Chris is just standing there watching them find all this. The purse is there. The phone is there. The kids' car seats are there. The ring is there. The family dog is just wandering around the house. Totally fine. What is he doing?
He's just vibrating with anxiety. He's rambling. He's telling the officer she said she was going to a friend's house, but he can't name the friend. Then he says maybe they went for a play date, but he can't name who or where. He is improvising, and he is doing a terrible job of it.
And this leads us right into segment 3, the investigation. Because while Chris is desperately trying to sell this missing person story, the technology all around him is already testifying against him.
This is what makes modern crime so difficult to get away with. We live in essentially a panopticon of our own data. Chris thought he was alone that morning, but he was being watched by a dozen different sensors.
And let's start with the most important one, the neighbor, Nate.
Nate had a home surveillance camera pointed directly at the Watts' driveway. And on the afternoon of the 13th, while Officer Coonrod is still there, Chris and the officer go next door to review the footage.
That body cam footage of them watching the neighbor's surveillance tape is one of the most excruciating things I have ever seen. You see Chris watching himself on the screen from earlier that morning, and he is physically panicking. He's putting his hands on his head. He's swaying back and forth like he's going to be sick.
Because the footage shows something very specific and very odd. It shows Chris backing his work truck, a huge Ford F-250, all the way up his driveway and into the garage at 5:17 a.m.
And why is that weird?
Because he never backs in. The neighbor even says it on camera. He says he never does that. Chris usually parks on the street or just pulls straight into the driveway.
Backing into the garage conceals the open bed of the truck from the camera's view.
Exactly. It hides what you're loading.
And the camera catches him walking back and forth, loading things into the cab and into the bed. You can't see the bodies clearly, but you can see the effort. And crucially, it shows that no one else left that house on foot.
Shanann didn't walk out. The kids didn't walk out. No other car pulled up and took them away. The only thing that left that property after 1:48 a.m. was Chris Watts' truck.
So the she ran off with the kids theory is dead on arrival. The police know within hours that they left in that truck. The only question is, were they alive or were they dead?
And that brings us to the GPS data. This wasn't just his personal vehicle. It was an Anadarko petroleum fleet truck, which means it had a sophisticated telematics system installed in it.
This is the stuff I love, the digital forensics. What did the truck's computer tell them?
It told him everything. It logged exactly when the engine started. It logged the precise route he took. It showed he didn't go to the office or his first job site. It showed he drove straight to a very remote oil site known as Survey 319.
And it could pinpoint him there.
Down to the meter. It showed he arrived at roughly 6:53 a.m. And then it showed the truck just idling there. The data shows the doors opening and closing for a long period of time. It completely contradicted his story of just going to work like normal.
So he can't say, I went to the office. The truck says, no, you went to the middle of nowhere for an hour and did something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you layer on the Wi-Fi router data from inside the house.
The digital silence again?
Right. The FBI analysis showed that Shanann's phone last connected to the home's router in the middle of the night and then never connected again. It showed no motion sensors were triggered, no other doors were opened or closed after Chris left. The house was essentially a tomb.
And while the police are quietly gathering all of this tech data, Chris makes his most fatal error. He decides to go on TV. The porch interviews.
I think this is the image most people remember from those first few days. He's standing on his front porch, talking to all the local Denver news stations.
And he's wearing a North Carolina Tar Heels t-shirt. I have to mention that. It's so bizarre. He's wearing a t-shirt with his favorite college sports team logo, arms crossed, talking about his missing pregnant wife and 2 daughters like he's discussing a lost package from Amazon.
The effect is just completely wrong. Some body language experts call it duping delight. In certain moments, you can see this little suppressed smile at the corner of his mouth because he thinks he's fooling everyone.
But mostly it's just cold. He says, I just want them back.
Right.
But you can hear him talking about them in the past tense occasionally. He's swaying. He's not frantic or crying. He's defensive.
And I read that while he was doing that interview with a Denver station, you could actually hear the search dogs barking inside the house right behind him.
You can. It's a completely surreal scene. The investigation is literally howling in the background while he stands there and lies to the camera.
So the net is just incredibly tight at this point. It's Wednesday, August 15, just 2 days after they disappear. The FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Fjord are fully involved. They bring him into the station for what they call an interview, but it's really an interrogation.
And they ask him to take a polygraph.
And look, we could debate the scientific validity of polygraphs all day long. They're not admissible in court for a reason, but as an interrogation tool, they are pure gold.
He fails, right?
He fails spectacularly. The examiner told him it was one of the most deceptive results she'd ever seen. He scores a -18, which in polygraph terms implies, extreme deception.
And once they tell him he failed, the whole dynamic in the room shifts.
Completely. They stop asking, where are they? And they start asking, what did you do?
And this moves us to segment 4, the confessions. And again, I say plural because he didn't just come out with the truth. He tried to negotiate with the truth.
This is a fascinating psychological dance. After they tell him he failed the polygraph, Chris asks to speak to his father, Ronnie Watts, who had flown in from North Carolina.
And they put them in an interrogation room together. They leave, but they know the cameras and the microphones are still rolling.
Of course. And Chris leans over and whispers the first version of the story to his dad. We call this the blame-shifting narrative.
So what does he say in this first version?
He admits to killing Shanann, but, and this is a massive but, he claims he only did it because he walked in and saw Shanann strangling Celeste on the baby monitor.
He's claiming she snapped and killed the kids first.
Exactly. He says he saw on the monitor that Bella was already blue and lifeless in her bed, and that Shanann was actively killing Cece. So he claims he flew into a fit of rage and strangled Shanann to stop her, or to, avenge the children.
It's an attempt to cast himself as the victim. I'm not a monster. I'm a tragic hero. Look what she made me do.
It's a complete attempt to save his own self-image. It's all about him. And the investigators, Agent Tammy Lee and Graham Coder, they had actually sort of fed him this idea earlier in the interrogation, hadn't they? To give him an out.
They did. It's a classic interrogation technique called minimization. They suggested to him, did Shan do something to the kids? Did you just react to that? And he grabbed onto that lifeline with both hands.
He sure did. But even though the why in this story was a complete lie, the where was finally the truth. He tells the investigators where he put the bodies. He points to an aerial photo of the Survey 319 oil site.
And on August 16th, the recovery teams go out there. And this is the part of the story that is just very hard to talk about, but we have to be accurate to the source material in the coroner's reports.
We do.
They find Shanann first. She was buried in a shallow grave that he dug near some of the oil equipment.
But the children, they weren't buried.
No, they were in the oil tanks.
Bella and Celeste were put inside these two massive crude oil batteries. And the detail from the recovery reports that I can never get it out of my head is the size of the opening.
The thief hatch at the top of these tanks is only 8 inches in diameter.
8 inches. That's about 20 centimeters.
Think about the physics of that for a second. He didn't just place them in there. He had to physically force them through that tiny opening.
The autopsy and the recovery reports are explicit. They note that Bella had scratches and abrasions on her buttocks, and there was a tuft of her own blonde hair found on the rough metal edge of the hatch.
Which indicates extreme force. It indicates either a struggle or, at the very least, a brutal, violent disposal.
It creates this visceral contradiction to the good dad image he was trying to sell. You don't shove a child you claim to love through an 8-inch hole into a tank of toxic crude oil. You just don't.
So at this point, the police have the bodies. They have a confession that he killed Shanann. But he's still sticking to the story that she killed the kids and he just reacted. When did the actual full truth come out?
It took months. It wasn't until well after he was sentenced, actually. In February of 2019, investigators from Colorado flew to the prison in Wisconsin to interview him again, just to get a final, truthful account for the family's sake.
And later, he also wrote these very detailed letters to a pen pal, a woman named Cheryl Cadle, and she ended up publishing them in a book.
Right. And in those later accounts, the reactive father mask just completely drops.
He admitted the truth. It was premeditated.
Completely.
How long had he been planning it?
For weeks, he said. He admitted that he had been fantasizing about killing them and starting this new life with Nicole Kessinger. And here is a detail from that prison confession that shows just how cold this was. He admitted to giving Shanann OxyContin when they were visiting family in North Carolina a few weeks earlier.
Wait. He tried to poison her.
He gave her a strong dose of OxyContin, hoping to induce a miscarriage. His twisted logic was that if she wasn't pregnant anymore, it would be easier to leave her.
That is, I don't even have a word for that level of cold calculation.
It didn't work. Nico was a fighter. But it shows the intent was there long before that night. And the timeline of the murder night itself also changed in this new confession.
How so?
He admitted that he killed Shanann first, after their emotional conversation. Then he went to the girls' rooms. He smothered them both with their blankets in their beds.
Oh, my God.
But, and this is like something out of a horror movie, they woke up.
They survived the first attempt?
Yes. Their little bodies were apparently resilient. They woke up groggy, traumatized, maybe with bruises on their necks. And then, and this is the hardest part of the entire case to even say out loud, he put them in the back of his truck, alive, with their mother's body wrapped in a sheet at their feet on the floor of the truck.
So he drove for 45 minutes out to that remote oil site with his living daughters and his dead wife in the same vehicle.
Yes. And according to his prison interview, Bella, the older one, kept asking him, is Mommy okay? And what's wrong with Mommy? She apparently saw him wrapping the body. He just told them their mom was sick.
And then at the site,
he smothered them. For the second and final time, one by one next to the open oil hatches. He said he killed Cece first with her favorite blue blanket. He put her body in the tank. Then he came back for Bella.
And Bella?
Bella apparently fought back. She knew what was happening. Her last words were, "Daddy, no." And he did it anyway.
It is just pure, complete annihilation. Which brings us to the question that hangs over this entire case. Segment 5, motive and psychology. Why? Why do this? Why not just get a divorce?
This is where we have to look at that profile of the family annihilator. It's a specific subset of homicide. And criminologists, like the famed profiler Dr. David Wilson, actually categorize them into four main types. There's the self-righteous, the disappointed, the paranoid, and the anomic.
And which one is Chris Watts?
He fits the anomic profile almost perfectly. The anomic killer is deeply linked to their economic status and success. For them, the family isn't just a family, it's an extension of their economic success. It's a symbol.
Okay, so connect that to the bankruptcy and the MLM pressure.
The family was a massive financial burden. They were the source of the debt. They were the reason he had to work a job he didn't love to pay for a house he couldn't afford. But it's more than that. For the anomic killer, the family eventually becomes the living symbol of their failure. And to erase the failure, you erase the family.
And then you add the accelerant, which is the girlfriend, Nicole Kessinger.
Right. We call this the fresh start motive. In his mind, Nicole represented a new, unencumbered life. No kids, no debt, no responsibilities, just gym dates and vacations and freedom. He didn't want to be a divorced dad, paying alimony and child support and only seeing his kids every other weekend. He wanted to hit the reset button completely.
He viewed his wife and his own children not as human beings, but as obstacles.
Exactly. It's what psychologists would call a profound narcissistic injury. He felt trapped by them. And in his pathological narcissism, he believed he was entitled to a life without consequences. He genuinely thought, and he said this in his confession, that he could just explain them away and everyone would believe him because he was such a nice guy.
There was also a note in some of the source material about the timing, the fact that this happened in August.
Yes. Forensic psychologists have noted a statistical spike in family annihilations in the month of August.
And why August? What's the significance?
It's the end of summer. It's right before the new school year starts. The twisted logic, if you can even call it that, is that it delays detection. If you kill your family in August, just before school begins, you can tell neighbors and friends, oh, we decided to move before the semester started. It buys you time.
That is just calculated cruelty.
It is. But Chris deviated from the typical profile in one very significant way. Most family annihilators commit suicide.
Right, it's a murder-suicide. They kill the family and then they kill themselves.
Correct. Either because the shame of what they've done is too great, or because in their mind the mission is complete. Chris claimed he thought about it. He claimed he stood over Shanann's grave and contemplated it. But he didn't do it.
No. He loaded up his truck, disposed of the bodies, and then went about his day.
He picked up a breakfast sandwich. He called his daughter's school to unenroll her. He texted his girlfriend about song lyrics and their future together. His survival instinct, his ego, was far stronger than any guilt or shame.
Let's wrap this up with segment 6, the aftermath. The legal outcome here was incredibly swift.
Very swift. He was arrested on August 15th, formally charged a few days later with 3 counts of first-degree murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body.
Now, this is Colorado in 2018. The death penalty was still on the table at that point.
It absolutely was. And the district attorney, Michael Rourke, made it very clear that he was prepared to pursue it.
But on November 6, 2018, less than 3 months after the crimes, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to all counts.
He took a deal.
Why a deal?
To avoid execution. But the critical piece here, the reason the DA's office offered the deal, was Shanann's family, the Ruchek family.
They were consulted.
Heavily. And in what is just an act of incredible, almost incomprehensible grace, they asked the DA not to seek the death penalty.
They said they didn't want to be responsible for taking another life.
That's right. Shanann's mother, Sandy Ruchek, said in a statement, "He made the choice to take those lives. I do not want to be in the position of making the choice to take his. They just wanted it to be over. They didn't want to endure years and years of appeals."
So the sentencing happened on November 19th, 2018.
And the judge, Marcelo A. Kopkow, just threw the entire book at him. He received 5 life sentences. 3 of them are to be served consecutively, meaning one after another, and 2 are concurrent, plus an additional 84 years for the other charges.
He is currently serving that time in Wisconsin at the Dodge Correctional Institution. He was moved out of Colorado pretty quickly for his own safety.
Correct. He is in maximum security. He will never, ever breathe free air again.
I do want to touch briefly on the media legacy before we go, because this case really felt like it changed the way we watch and consume true crime.
It really did. The 2020 Netflix documentary, American Murder, The Family Next Door, was revolutionary because it had no narrator. It didn't need one.
It was just the primary source material. The police body cam footage, the interrogation tapes, the text messages flashing on the screen, Shanann's own Facebook videos.
And that made it feel incredibly raw and intimate. You were being told a story. You felt like you were voyeuristically watching a marriage dissolve in real time. It forced you to confront the reality of their relationship, not just the crime itself.
But there's a really dark side to that media saturation, too. The online communities, the shiners, the people who attack Shanann.
It's a horrific phenomenon. It's pure victim blaming. You have people online who spend their days dissecting her spending habits, her personality from her videos, saying she was bossy or controlling, as if any of that could ever justify murder.
It's a defense mechanism, right? People want to believe she did something to cause it, because if she was just a normal person and this happened, then it could happen to anyone.
That's exactly it. If he's the monster and she's the perfect victim, it's terrifying. But if you can find a flaw in her, you can create distance. You can tell yourself that wouldn't happen to me.
And that is the terrifying thought that I think we have to end on here.
It's the core of this entire deep dive.
We started by talking about the facade. The perfect photos on Facebook, the big house in the nice suburb.
Chris Watts wasn't some monster who lived under a bridge. He was the guy next door. He was the guy at the company BBQ who was quiet but nice. He was the dad you saw at the park pushing his daughters on the swings.
And yet that same man was capable of putting his own children in oil tanks.
The lesson here, if there is one, is about the profound limit of our own perception. We see the mask, we see the Instagram feed, we see the performance, but we have no idea what is truly happening behind the closed doors or inside the overdrawn bank accounts or, most frighteningly, inside the human mind.
It forces you to ask that awful question.
But,
How well do you really know your neighbors? How well do you know the people you see in your feed every single day?
and perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, how well do we really know the breaking points of the people we think we love?
That is a thought that will stick with me for a very long time. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. It was a heavy one, but we hope by unpacking the data and the raw documents, we honored the truth of what happened to Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico.
Absolutely.
Take care of yourselves out there. We'll see you on the next one.